Good morning. Good morning. Okay. Listen, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to another day of getting to self actualization. I am Yashika Foster, if you've never been here before. And by the time we end this particular live, maybe you'll feel encouraged or motivated or inspired to subscribe here, subscribe to me on whatever platform you are watching this on. Better yet, subscribe, follow, leave a comment and share, right? Tell a friend about it. Let them know that I am doing some amazing things out here for the world, okay? I am really doing some amazing things out here for the world because I believe that people should live their absolute best lives. And for them to be able to live their absolute best lives and walk in their truth and get to who they're meant to be in this world, they have to get to the stage of self actualization, right? That stage in your life where you're able to be who you are destined to be because all other things are good. You're free, you're clear, you don't have any worry, you're safe, you're content, all the things. You have a beautiful support system, like all the things, right? But we all know that before we can get to that stage of self-actualization, that final stage, that we have to go through so many other things. Along those other things, right? Those other subjects, there are categories, there are subcategories up under there, and then up under those subcategories there are subcategories, and so on and so forth. And so today we are talking about blame, right? Blame versus accountability. Okay, we're going to talk about mirror talk first, right? Mirror talk is when you get in the mirror and you say to yourself, or you ask yourself, what did I do wrong, or what could I have done differently to change the outcome of this situation? It can be, what did you do wrong, because it might be on you while you are in a situation that you're in, right? It could be only on you. You could have done some things that you say, you know what, it was me. Am I the problem? Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm the problem. Because, see, one thing I know about accountability is accountability allows you to say, you know what? Look in the mirror, do what you look in the mirror and talk to yourself. Look in the mirror and dig deep. Don't talk about what other people did. Don't talk about how others contribute to whatever situation is going on. What did you do? So, what did I do? So, I got up, I got dressed, I went to that party. Okay. I didn't tell nobody that I was going. So, that's what you did. It's not what they did. What did you do to prevent yourself, or you couldn't have been in that situation, right? So it's always like, because one thing I know about life is that, or living and being human, you can't control anybody else. So all you can do is control yourself. And part of controlling yourself is taking accountability and responsibility for whatever it is that you did or didn't do or should have done or could have done, or whatever it was that you feel like you need to take accountability for. When I think about accountability, I think about, because this is hood parenting. This is hood parenting. So a lot of things that I think about in terms of accountability is things that I think about when it comes to my children. And because I've lived a life, honey, I can talk about my stuff all day long. What I did about my marriages, how could I made them better? What did I did on my part? Like all that, right? Even if it's from the beginning, like you saw the red flags from the beginning, but you married his ass anyway. But we're not gonna go there, okay? We're not gonna go there, okay? We're not gonna go there. What we are gonna talk about is children, right? Children and parenting. So my oldest son is was in college, right? And while he was in college, of course, by me being, when he first started college, I paid for his college out of pocket, the whole 9 yards, because like the first 2 years. Then after that, I had retired. So by the time I retired, there were benefits that had settled, or whatever. There were benefits or whatever that he was able to get now while he was in a university, as opposed to the other school in the beginning. And so while he was in college, there was some issues with some paperwork. Being military and everything, there was some paperwork that you have to fill out in order to get the military benefits. Well, sure enough, I called my son, right? He was living on his own, and he didn't want nothing to do with me because I was intense. I was too intense for him, honey. He felt like I stressed him out because I wanted him to be responsible. So I would call him and I say, son, something's not right. I remember specifically I called him. It was like, son, it was like October time frame of this particular year. Maybe it was his third or fourth year college. Fourth year. Son, something's not right. Something's not right because you might need to call the VA hospital and find, excuse me, the VA and find out where this money is because something's not right. He didn't do it. He didn't do it. Not only did he not do it, I even call him back again and say, son, did you do it? Because some still's not right. Still didn't do it. So by this time, we're like in November, October, November time frame. I said, you know what? I'm not gonna worry about it no more because at this point I had to call him about 2, 3 times, and he didn't call them people to find out what was going on. So fast forward to January of that following year, it's time for him to register for the new semester. Now there's a problem because now he has like a $7 or $8,000 debt with this university that should have been covered by my VA benefits. Okay, so now he wanted to return my call. Now he wanted to discuss the situation that I had been trying to tell him about 3 months prior. Okay, now we're gonna put a pin in that. We're gonna go away. We're gonna go away from that. We're gonna fast forward like 2, 3 years down the line. Okay, because that's how long it took him to pay back this $7,000 because I wasn't paying it back because like I had explained to him, if you had fixed it from the beginning, you wouldn't be here. But you chose to ignore me. You chose not to be responsible. And so here we are, right? So when it came up to him and I'm telling him, son, you've been in college now for 10 years, okay? You've been in college now for 10 years. This was last year when he finally graduated. I'm like, it's about doggone time you graduated, okay? Because you were milking. Because in his mind, as long as he was a college student, he didn't have to grow up yet. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You have to grow up. You have to grow up. You have to grow up. But anyway, with that being said, when I told him that, when I reminded him that he had been in college for 10 years, his knee-jerk reaction was, well, had been out for 2 years, mama, so that's not the same. Well, you were in limbo for 2 years because you could not go to school until that $7,000 debt is paid off. And because you took your time about paying it off, 2 years passed. Because if it was me, I would have hurried up and paid it off, especially when you know not only while you're in college, you also get a check while they're paying your college. So why wouldn't you hurry up and pay that $7,000 back and go on about your business? So his thing was that he had a debt, therefore that prolonged his college experience or him being in college for too long. And like I told him, nope, let's go back to the beginning. Don't pick up this story where you want to pick it up at from, which is couldn't go to school because I had a debt. No, how did you get the debt? Because if you had took action when I told you to 3 months prior to you discovering this issue or you looking into this issue, you wouldn't be here, right? So that's what accountability looks like. Going back from the beginning. Don't pick up the story where you said, well, you know what, it didn't work out in me. No, because this could have been avoided. Now, granted, let's just say nobody knew anything about anything. Then he can say, well, you know what, I had no idea. Then in that instances, then okay, maybe you're saying, well, it was on them or whatever. I don't know. But in a situation like this, he knew everything. So when I think about accountability and things like that, this is what I think about. And when it comes to blame for some people, it is so easy to blame other people, right? Because when it comes to blaming feels like a release, but it's a trap, right? Blaming others feels like it's a release, but it's a trap. In the moment, it creates a false sense of justice for the person. Because if they're able to say, well, you did it, then they're saying, well, okay, I'm vindicated, right? That's what they're vindicated. And then it gives you your pain a target. Because it was just this idea, it was this that happened. Like with my son, I did not continue college because of this debt, right? That's where the issue happened when they sent me the debt and told me that I could not continue on in college until this debt is paid. So for him, that was the pain, that was the target pain. That was the point in which the pain started. But no, the pain started from before, right? From before. So yeah, think about that. One thing about blame is that it doesn't bring you closure because you're always looking for an excuse as to why you are right here. So even with that same example that I gave about my son, when he looks at that and say, well, I could have continued on if this hadn't happened, but because it did happen, I ended up having to be in school 2 years longer. Okay, but still, it only takes 3.5 years to get a bachelor's degree. But I didn't say that though. Okay, so even if we knock off those 2 years that you was waiting to pay it back or that he was paying it back, you still was at 8 years. It doesn't take 8 years to get a bachelor's degree when you're a full-time student. And I'm just saying. So now that he's older and he's in his 30s, I am proud to say that he's understanding that now. He is understanding that, listen, I don't control nothing, nobody. Listen, I don't control no one else but myself. I have to be responsible. And what did I do? And I'm glad that he's 30 now. I'm glad that he's there now. I'm glad that he's at that point where he can say, okay, I can do better. I can say, okay, I'm accountable for this, and understand that when you take accountability, accountability gives you power, right? Because at that point you say, okay, this is where my pain point is, right? Because this is moving forward. This is where my pain point is. So how can I make sure that in the future I negate these type of pains? I eliminate some of these pains so I won't experience this hardship, this heartache, this stumble, this setback, this roadblock, whatever it is, right? And when you're able to see that, when you're able to really see where you were the problem, or you could have changed directions, or you had control of the situation, or whatever you want to put in your hands, right? Because again, you want to control you. You can only decide what you do. Once you get to that point where you can say, okay, this is where I control it, then you can look at accountability and say, you know what? Accountability ain't self-blame. It's literally leadership, because you lead your life. You say, okay, I do this. I get to control this. I'm accountable for myself in this. Nobody else but me. Okay? Nobody else but me. Right? So when we talk about blame versus accountability, when in terms of self-actualization, for you to get there, these things are things that you have to really work on. Because a self-actualized person don't still blame their parents for something that happened. Like me, I'm 50 something. I'm 52. Okay, and if you listen to my story that I've told, for example, I was a grew up in a one parent home, right, with my mom, right. Things like that I talk about. So one of the things that I learned early in life was the fact that me having an absentee father had an effect on my life. However, at 52, I can't still be saying that I have a problem here, or I don't trust, or I don't believe. Like I had to figure out a way to use that and say, okay, because of these things, this is how I am, right? This is the way I am, and I'm accountable for my actions, and I understand why. So moving forward, I'm very straightforward. I'm very upfront about certain things. So when I'm in relationships, when I'm dating or whatever, this is where I'm at, right? Accountability for me means that I understand that a parent has a certain role, but at the same time, an adult has a choice. So when I'm in a relationship, I let them know, don't think because I had an absentee father, I view men this way, because that's not how I view men, right? I don't view men in a negative way. I view men this way, right? His actions had nothing to do with it. However, it lets me know all humans have choices, right? But they have to be able to live with their choices, right? They have to be accountable for their actions. And so I can't harbor on what he did and blame somebody else, right? Because for me, that's giving an excuse to anything that goes wrong in that relationship, right? Well, it's one of those things where I have to be accountable for the partners that I choose. I have to be accountable for the life that I choose to live. And I can't blame something that happened, or my lack of, from when I was a kid or a young adult, or my first marriage or my first real relationship, whatever it is. I can't blame it on that if I have issues going on now, or if there's something going on now, because at this point they should have been resolved in some kind of way, or worked through, right? Because it's not, lessons are to be learned to enhance you in life. And let's be clear there, because I think a lot of times people get stuck in those particular things. Lessons are that the things that you go to in life, like whatever those things may have been, whether it was last week, a year ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago in some instances, right? Or beyond. Those were lessons. If you did something and you're like, okay, I made a bad choice, don't still beat yourself up about it. Just move forward and do something different, right? Lessons are to be learned to make you better, not to make you stuck in a situation where you're like, well, because of this happened. No, because life goes on, right? You can't, if you didn't have accountability back then, have accountability now, right? If you're still trying to understand why certain things keep happening in your life, Go back to some things that were similar and figure out where you played a role into it. And that's where you start saying, okay, what did I do? How did I contribute to this? And moving forward, how can I make sure that these things never happen again? Listen, that's it, that's all, right? When we're talking about accountability, right? So, when we talk, this whole series, getting to self-actualization, listen, it's needed, okay? So, like I said before, if this is your first time here or you've been here for these last few days as we continue on with this series, make sure, because I see y'all watching, I see the views, honey, I see the views, but I'll make sure you like, you click, you say something, even if you just come in and say, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever it is, or if you just say hashtag replay, because I'm catching this particular live on a replay, all right? But no matter what, show your girl some love. Comment, subscribe, share, follow, do whatever you need to do in order to make sure. So today we talked about self-blame versus accountability, and understanding that in order for you to get to your self-actualization, you have to be accountable for you. Only you can be accountable for you. Blaming other people, that doesn't get you anywhere, right? Now, do that person plays a part? Can people play a part in things that happen to you? Absolutely. But blaming them doesn't get you anywhere. Blaming them doesn't help resolve your issue. Only you can. So figure out what you do. Like we say in the military, strap up your boots, tie them up real tight, right? Lace them up, tuck in the laces, and go on about your business. And if you need to, go down, drop it to a knee, and drink water, and get back up and keep marching along. All right, I'm Yashika, your self-actualization coach and life strategist. DM me if you are ready to work with me, because trust me when I tell you, when you talk to me, you're going to want to work with me. Trust me when I tell you that. Trust me when I tell you that when you talk to me, you're going to want to work with me, because when I get finished sprinkling sunshine and glitter all over, okay, you're going to be like, you know what? I need her in my life. I did not know that I needed her in my life. I'll talk to y'all in the next live. Bye.